Hello, lovely beings. 'Tis I, your host, Autumn Oakley. Welcome to Awaken Mindset, a podcast of awakening authenticity, shifting mindset, and expanding energy. There is such beauty in this life when we are willing to face the truth of ourselves in order to truly see. It's in awareness we gain control over our reality. Hello, lovely beings. Welcome to today's episode of Awaken Mindset. Today's episode, I wanted to talk about something a little more serious, a little more somber. And, I just wanted to share my unique experience in overcoming, suicidal thoughts in these aspects. So, if anything resonates with you from what I have to share, I hope that it can inspire you on your path to heal, to grow. And, this aspect is a very hard thing that, a lot of people struggle with. And it's really a part of the ego. It's really, what I've learned over the years is that when I had, these thought processes, when I no longer wanted to exist in this world, yes, it had to come down to healing, but it also just had to come down to the fact that I needed to grow and change. And that's, what it's about sometimes, is that sometimes we're feeling lost and we don't know why. And it's just because sometimes we are out of alignment in life. We're feeling alone within ourselves. And that's a hard thing. So I send you love through the screen because likely if you're listening to this, it's something that you are struggling with or something that you know someone who is struggling with. And it's a hard thing to overcome. It's a hard thing to, deal with in that aspect and support people with. So know that I send you love through the screen. But I just wanted to share my unique perspective, my unique experience with the matter in any case that it helps you or those you love on this, unfortunate, mindset that sometimes can take over. And it's a hard thing. So, not wanting to exist in the world, me, myself, I went on and off, with this thought process for decades. And it really hit heavy, in my early teens and, throughout, my later teens into early adulthood, into my 20s. And it really came down to different periods in my life where I was numbing out, where I was feeling lost, where I wasn't facing things. And it did come, from the aspect of, my upbringing, my environment, my childhood, that I felt very alone. And, it's a hard thing that sometimes, yes, it is because of unfortunate circumstances from our traumas, from our environments, from, where we're living, how, life is kind of, going on, things that we experience. But sometimes we don't always understand the reason why we feel that we don't want to exist in this world. And I've gone through those stages as well, is that, I was going ahead to partake in life like everyone else was doing, but I didn't feel like I was fitting in. I didn't feel that, I was whole within myself. And in those times, it wasn't really about me addressing my environment, certain relationships, unfortunately, doing healing in regards to traumas and those aspects. But in those stages in my life, when I felt this way, I really just felt, this hole within myself that I couldn't quite explain to people. I was going about life how I thought I was meant to be living. And this is a big part of it, what I've learned over the years, that, anytime I had these thought processes that I didn't want to exist in this world, it was really, coming to an awareness and a space that I couldn't quite explain it to people. I couldn't quite perceive it myself, but it felt like my soul was dying. It felt like, I was just so out of this world, like I wasn't actually existing in it. I was just going about, what I thought I was meant to be doing. And I think that's a really big part that we don't talk about, that a lot of people, who I've connected with and just, my unique experiences struggle with in regards to, this thought that we don't want to exist in this world any longer. We begin to numb out. We don't always understand the reason why we have this feeling, and it's heavy and it's dark. And, we want to connect with people, we want to seek support, but sometimes, we don't feel that, that's available to us. Sometimes we do seek support and it's not really provided, unfortunately. And that was me, in my teens as well. Sometimes we know, a lot of the time that people in our lives love us and we love them, but we can't break free of these thought processes. And that's a hard thing in, these dynamics and these relationships. So a lot of, what I've experienced over the years in regards to, me not wanting to exist in this world, the main aspect really did come down to, the fact that I was out of alignment in life. I wasn't growing. And I think this is something we don't talk about. And, this is something that, we can't always perceive in different stages, different, levels of conscious awareness. And if that term doesn't resonate with you, different perspectives in our lives. We go about life, doing what we think we're meant to be doing. And it doesn't mean that we're not enjoying life. It doesn't mean we don't love the people in our life. It doesn't mean that we don't love our jobs. But sometimes we can't quite explain this feeling we have deep within us, that we're feeling out of place. We feel that, we don't want to exist in this world, and it leads us to numb out. It leads us to, this perspective that, deep down, we kind of understand that people don't understand us, and we don't really know how to explain it to people. And I really like to, talk about the spiritual aspects, and I really like to talk about that everything is energy. And this is what it comes down to sometimes. But, in regards to just, that thought process, different, perceptions, different feelings that we're going through, different stages in our lives when we no longer want to exist in this world, it really, is what I have learned in my unique experience, is that I was out of alignment in life. I didn't know who I was. I didn't feel whole within myself, and my ego took over. The ego really doesn't like what's different, what brings on pain, what, is going to change in life. And sometimes we can perceive that, yes, we understand we really care about people in our lives, and we know that we're cared about. We understand that, yes, maybe we are partaking in life in the way that we feel we need to, but we're feeling, this hole within us, and we can't explain it. And it's because we're not living a path, of alignment that's authentic to us. And that really comes down to self-exploration. And this isn't something we talk about in regards to this thought process, but this is what saved me. And, it was coming to the awareness that I thought I knew who I was for 30 years until I woke up one day, looked in the mirror, and had no idea who the hell was looking back at me. And that was, the scariest moment of my life. And me, myself, I had been in a lot of, unfortunate, situations, and a lot of dangerous, situations as well. That should not have been the scariest moment in my life. And that truly was the scariest thing I ever experienced up until that point. So coming to that space, it really brought me into this state to understand that, okay, something's off here. I feel a hole within myself. I don't know who's looking back at me. And that's really, when I partook in a journey of self-discovery, that, these things started to change in my life. And I no longer felt, numbed out. Yes, it was about doing the healing. It was about, making hard decisions, making great change in my life. But in taking, a journey of self-discovery, you really get in touch with that wholeness within yourself, that thing that we can't always explain, that we feel is missing, that leads us into this state that we're feeling like we don't exist in the world. And that is, my biggest advice. And I know it seems simple, but, what I've learned over the years is that a lot of who we think we are, is sometimes what's been conditioned. And that's a natural process, is that, what's been conditioned in our society, different mindsets, different aspects, what's been conditioned in our subconscious, patterns and beliefs really just come down to, the experiences we've had. So when we're living a life we feel that we're meant to, because that's all we've ever known, sometimes we are not truly aware of what else, authentic to us, what lights up our soul. And this leads us onto a path that we continue to do the same, because the subconscious mind, leads us into the same beliefs. The subconscious mind, puts us on repeat of the same patterns and actions every day. So if we don't change, if we don't, take a step to understand, what lights us up uniquely, and a lot of the time that means, yes, you need to embark on a journey unknown. You need to try new things. You need to travel different places. You need to connect with new people. You need to really, go deep within yourself to understand, why do I feel this hole within me? And that's what it's about. What I have learned in my unique perception, going through this in different, levels of intensity over, the decades, is that I didn't know who I was. I felt a hole I couldn't explain to other people, and I couldn't explain it to myself. And, embarking on, this journey of, spirituality, consciousness and different details, it's a different awareness. It's a different perspective, and you gain an awareness of the reasons as to why, you feel this way. But that takes time, that takes growth. And that's what it's about, is that, people say, change your mindset, change your life. And that's true. But it comes down to addressing the energy in everything, because everything is energy. Every aspect, every atom in your environments, within yourself, within your thoughts, everything holds a vibration. Everything is energy. So everything needs to be addressed to, step into change. And that's, what's not been conditioned in society, that we're meant to embark on trial and error. We're meant to do things that feel right to us, whether that means setting a boundary, leaving a situation, doing something that no one else is doing. And it's when we can step into our authenticity and discover who we are that, these aspects within ourselves that we can't always explain begin to feel whole and your life truly can change. So this is my unique perspective on this. If you were feeling like you're struggling, that you don't want to exist in this world, if you're going through a deep, dark depression, I've been there on and off again, for decades. It gets really dark and it feels very lonely. And, it's not just the fact that, it feels lonely. It's natural to feel lonely. We're human, but it's that you feel alone. And aloneness really comes down to the fact that we don't feel whole within ourselves. So that's the thing we need to step into. So, seek support if you need to, go ahead to reach out to people, whether that's in the professional sense, with a coach, with a guide, with, a psychologist, perhaps, going ahead to connect with your family, communicate. I think that's a really big thing. Communicate with people that you trust. And, me uniquely, I went through, this process, in my teens that, there was a time in my life that, there were many times in my life I felt like I didn't want to exist in this world. And it was because, I didn't feel whole within myself. I felt out of place. I was doing life how other people were doing it, but something was missing. I couldn't perceive it. I couldn't explain it to people. I couldn't explain it to myself. And it led me into these dark patterns. It led me into, numbing out. I was always a person who grew up in, state of fight or flight because of my environments. So that would lead me into the state that I would burn out naturally, because fight or flight is not, an everlasting state we should be living in. It's really a protective state. So if we're living in this state of stress all the time, it leads us into burnout. It leads us to numb out. And that's, sometimes what leads us into these thought patterns that we've been numbed out for so long that we're just kind of going about life. We're feeling, not whole within life. We're not feeling aligned, or that we're living a life that's intentional, that holds meaning. And sometimes, yes, it's dark. And that's, what it comes down to, is that we're living out of alignment with our soul's truth, with our authenticity, with our purpose in life. And it comes down to, yes, healing, addressing our environments, our relationships sometimes, these different aspects. But, I've been in those dark stages where, naturally over time, you just kind of numb out, and it's a coping mechanism. And then you go about life and months go by. You don't really recognize you're numbed out. You're just kind of doing things how you're doing them. And then you're kind of coming to this space that, you just have this perception. You don't want to be living like this anymore. You don't know how to change it. You don't feel a spark within you. You're numbed out. And that's, I think a really hard aspect in regards to, this thought that we have that we don't want to exist in this world, is that we've come to a space that we're numbed out and we don't always recognize it. We don't know how to break free of it because nothing's lighting us up. And, me on, this experience I had that truly, scared me and changed my life. I was numbed out for, several months, but I couldn't perceive it. I was just kind of, going about doing life. And, I was on my way to work, at 6 a.m. where I was working at the hotel at this point in time. And I hit a patch of ice, driving to work, and, there was no one around. And it was in this moment, I let go of the wheel and I just kind of let things unfold as they did. And it wasn't the fact that, I was wanting to die. It wasn't the fact that I was aware that I didn't want to exist in this world. I kind of let go of the wheel in, and I don't mean like I let go, like I was still holding on, but I was not intentionally trying to move the wheel. I was not intentionally, trying to shift what was going on. I hit a patch of ice. I was kind of going out of control and I was not aware. I was numbed out. And I just kind of, in my thought process, that ego took over to say, what's going to happen is going to happen. And I just let things be. I went into freeze mode. And this is a hard thing, is that when I finally hit a patch of grass and my car stopped, I just started bawling because that was a scary moment to understand that I didn't have a spark within me to want to live. And it wasn't the fact that I consciously wanted to die. It's just I was numbed out and I felt like I had no control over it. Nothing was sparking within me. I had no more fight or flight left. And that's a hard thing that we don't talk about when it comes to not wanting to exist in this world, is that, a lot of the time we're not really conscious that, we're in this, stage, we're in this thought process. And it's a hard thing to face. And I know so many people have lost so many people, in life. And, yes, there's a lot of love between both parties. And it's such a hard thing. And, sometimes people don't always understand, where it came about, why this happened. And then people blame themselves, and don't blame yourself. Sometimes it is just, coming to this awareness that we're not aware. And that's what I learned over the years, is that sometimes when I had this thought process, I didn't know or recognize it was there. But it was really just because of, my nervous system, my state of being. I was numbed out, but I wasn't aware of it. And, in this, incident, that's kind of what, it was brought to my awareness that, oh my God, I'm in this really dark state. But, I just kind of let things be. I just kind of let things unfold in this way. I didn't recognize I was in such a dark place. And I just kind of, didn't have anything within me anymore. And that's a hard thing. So, give yourself some love, if this is something you can resonate with, or if you've, been experiencing this or have lost someone, in regards to, this, horrible thing that is, such a prevalent thing in our society a lot of the time, is that sometimes, people are just not aware they're in this state. They've gone into this state that they're numbed out and they're not conscious of it. And that's a hard thing I had to face over the years. So, go ahead to understand that, yes, we need to step into the change. And I think that's, a really important thing. So if this is a thought process you've been struggling with, if you've had a similar experience where you're kind of in freeze mode, it's really something to question. If you're feeling depressed all the time, if you feel that you're numbed out, then sometimes unconsciously this kind of can come into play. So go ahead to really step into the change. And I think that's really important, is that what I have learned over the years, our soul feels like it's dying. We're meant to be growing in life. And if we're not growing, if we're not seeking change, this kind of comes to that aspect that unconsciously, we fall into this state of stagnation. Unconsciously, we begin to numb out because we're so far out of alignment and we're not growing, we're not changing. And then the ego takes over, the mind takes over in that way. And that's what I've experienced uniquely over time. So, if that resonates with you, hopefully that can, shift your perspective on the matter, to understand that we don't really talk about this enough. We need to step into change. We need to start doing things that feel authentic to us. And that means doing hard things. That means, traveling somewhere you've always wanted to do, booking that one-way ticket, taking that leap of faith. Do it. Make a huge change, a huge step. If you feel that you're always, falling into burnout, you're going through the stage of numbing out, set some boundaries in your work environment, set some boundaries in your relationships. Start stepping into the change to discover, what you're meant to do in life. Start going ahead to try new things, join new clubs, get in touch with your creative pursuits, join new hobbies, leave your environments, try new things, discover what feels right to you and set boundaries in accordance to that. People are not always going to understand why you're making change, but people who love you and care about you, they understand that you making changes, you doing hard things is for you to get to a better space. And people who care about you will want that for you. And that's something we really need to, understand as well, is that yes, people may not always, understand, sometimes, yes, there will be discussions and it brings about change in a hard time. But, people who care about you, communicate with them. Let them know you're in a really dark space. You are stepping into change. You are doing what feels right to you, to discover who you are, to feel whole within yourself, to grow, to learn, to step into your authenticity so that you aren't having these dark thoughts. You're not numbed out in life, so that you can get to a better space. And when you express it in that way, you will really see that people care about you and they will work, to understand that, okay, you're bringing about change. I get that. I want you to get to a better space. So I will try to adapt, in ways that I'm able in accordance to that. So, and sometimes, yes, that does bring some unfortunate, realizations that sometimes, your relationships don't have the best intentions for you. And, this is something that we need to learn as well, is that, when this, aspect is brought to our awareness, sometimes that's why we feel that we're numbed out. Sometimes that's why we are feeling that we don't want to exist in this world, because our ego doesn't want us to face certain things in our environments, in our relationships, that lead us into these states that we are feeling disconnected with ourselves. And, that is a hard thing to face, but we need to bring our awareness to those things. And, that was me in my teens, and I, connected with people who had a similar experience as well. And I, was going through a dark time, and I mustered every ounce of courage that I had to ask, this one, particular family member, it was a parent figure, for assistance, because I didn't have the money. I knew that, how they approached life wasn't something that they could support me with. But, I used every ounce of courage I had to really brave, this fact that I didn't want to exist in this world. I was in a really dark place. Nothing I was doing on my own was working. Didn't matter if I would run at night, for hours on end, go to the gym. I was numbed out. I didn't want to exist in this world anymore. I didn't know how to step into change. I was going through a really hard time. I didn't have support in the friend group. I didn't have support, in my family. I had no support at all. So, I really wanted to seek professional help, but I didn't have the finances. So I used every ounce of courage I had to ask this, particular family member, if I could just, go ahead to have one session or, some financial support, because I didn't want to exist in this world anymore. And I really needed some assistance with that. And, it was a hard thing. The response was, stop crying wolf. And that's kind of where it was left. And then the days that, followed, I was kind of, just given the silent treatment. And while, yes, this could have been a really, hard time, it was a hard time, coming to this awareness that, I truly was alone. I truly had no support. And, it was, really easy for me to kind of take my life, in that space over those, few days. But, this is, coming to that aspect as well, is that one, I had to bring my awareness to the fact that, okay, this relationship is what it is, and I need to address that and understand that, heal from that, take steps accordingly, and understand that maybe this is part of the cause as to why I am feeling that I don't want to exist in this world, because I truly feel alone where I am in my environments and my relationships. So that's a hard thing to face, but we need to, face that fact and address that accordingly. But, it was in this experience as well that, while I was going through this hard time, and, I could have easily, just kind of left life, I was thinking about different processes and this sort of aspect. One thing that always remained true throughout my life when I went through these experiences is that I had an anchor. And this is what I suggest if you are having a difficult time with this, dark thought process that you don't want to exist in this world. Yes, step into the change, discover who you are, start building that wholeness within yourself, start trying new things, start growing, in self-development, bringing about change into your life to get to a better space. But, one big thing is, I suggest to find an anchor. And, this is something that I held on to and I continue to hold on to throughout my life, is that, yes, I understand, we love people. And, sometimes, it's a hard thing when you lose someone and you understand there was love there, and people can become so hard on themselves to think I could have done more, maybe I wasn't enough. And don't hold that to yourself. It's really a thought process, a mindset that the ego really takes over. It's really nothing to do with that there wasn't love there. So understand that that's just sometimes what it's about, is that we're out of alignment with our authenticity, and it just kind of allows the mind to take over in that way, which is really hard and really unfortunate. And I know a lot of people suffer with this, but me, over the years, I had an anchor. And what does this mean? What does this look like? If you're struggling with this, you need to find something that you can hold on to that holds more importance than not existing in this world, that makes your soul cry to the absolute if you do not follow through with this thing. And that was me. And I get so emotional talking about it because, this is always my anchor throughout my life, throughout, the decisions I make moving forward, in regards to, this wonderful space, this mindset, that I don't have these recurring thoughts. But, it's in hard times that I always hold on to this anchor. And sometimes your anchor will shift. And I think that's important as well, is that sometimes, we can say to ourselves, I want to go ahead to walk my daughter down the aisle. I'm going to hold on to this thought process. So I'm not going to take my life. I love my family. I would never leave them. And this is true, and I understand this. And, that was my thought process as well. But sometimes the mind takes over. It really overwhelms us. And while those facts hold true, we always need to hold an anchor that is malleable to change. Because sometimes if we have this thing that holds us, to existing in this world, sometimes, every time change is inevitable. Change is going to happen. So, if you go ahead to say, they're holding on to this anchor, this aspect that, you are going to continue, pursuing the change, staying in this existence in life because you one day want to walk your daughter down the aisle, maybe that is, something that has already occurred, and then that anchor is gone, and then sometimes can put us into a dark space. Things change, and that's, part of your anchor, is that you need to keep it malleable to change. Sometimes aspects come up that, what we were holding on to falls away. It's gone forever. Sometimes we lose people. Sometimes, what we're holding on to that we want to, start this dream falls through, and then that anchor's gone. We have nothing holding us, to this space, this mindset within our soul. It's not just about the mind. It's something connected to your deep rooted soul that is your anchor, that will really help you, holding on to, life when you're in these dark thought processes. And that was me, is that throughout the years, throughout the decades, I held on to the anchor that, regardless of what happens, I can't leave my sister. And, she has Down syndrome, and she is my angel, and I love her. And, she is, unknowingly, she was always, the one thing that I held on to that kept me going throughout life. And I was getting emotional talking about it. But, that aspect had to change as well when I, chose different paths, when I had to grow. So when you go about, this hard thought process and you're struggling, you don't want to exist in this world, if you can find an anchor that really sparks something within your soul, that it holds deeper meaning to you on a soul level, not just about the mind. The mind takes over in a different way. It really needs to be something within yourself that you think about, that if you do not follow through with this thing, it is far worse than leaving this world. So that's what I mean by finding an anchor, is that, I didn't have a lot of family, and, it was always just, my sister and, my mother and, myself. So throughout the years, going through, these hard times, I always said to myself that, I need to be there for her. And that's something I always just said throughout my life in general. If something happens, I want to be there to support her, to protect her, to take care of her. And that was my anchor, is that I always needed to be that light for her in her life, because, we faced a lot of struggle. We faced a lot of hard times, and things were not always easy for us in regards to our environments, in regards to just life in general. And, I didn't have the best relationship with my family in general. I just always, chose to hold on to that anchor for my sister. I stayed in, very traumatic and, abusive situations and environments and relationships, just holding on to this anchor. And, this is a big part of what led me into these dark stages, these dark mindsets that I didn't want to exist in this world. So it's counterintuitive, really, is that, I held on to this anchor to stay where, was kind of the cause leading me into these dark thought processes that I wanted to leave this world. But, it was that anchor itself, that my sister was the key to everything, that I just wanted to love her and protect her, how much I was allowed to, in regards to time I was provided, and just support her and be that light in her life when she needed it. But it needs to be something that's malleable, because I really went through, a stage in my life when I stepped into the change. I discovered who I was authentically. I, was facing hard things. I was, very much aware of, different situations in my family dynamics that, it was leading me into this dark stage. I couldn't, continue with it. I went through with it to stay in these environments and these relationships for 28 years. But it was really coming to a space that it was no longer, something I could proceed with. It was leading me into darker mental illness and, chronic physical illness twice in my life, because the body keeps the score. And, it was this as well, is that I was coming back into these stages that I didn't want to exist in this world. And that's something I was trying to leave. And while, yes, I had this anchor that I wanted to protect my sister, it was really a different awareness that I gained when I did healing, when I started setting boundaries, when I started stepping into change, that I was feeling whole within myself. I was giving myself that self-love that I was recognizing. I no longer was feeling that I didn't want to exist in this world. I was really feeling whole within myself, that I was deserving of something different. I was deserving of, a different life, of feeling, seen and reciprocated in efforts. And that went through, throughout my relationships. And while, yes, I did have some amazing friends and an amazing sister, I needed to recognize hard things and make really hard decisions in my life. And that brought about a lot of change. So that kind of came to the awareness that I recognized, it was actually safer for her, for me to step into my authenticity, to give myself a voice, to step into the change in life. It was safer for her if I removed myself from, their lives, from my mother and my sister, because, it was me kind of, molding myself, feeling, this hole within myself throughout my life that, I was trying to fit into their life and not make waves. And I didn't have a voice. I didn't have a say. I didn't feel safe in my environments or in the situation. I kind of just molded myself to allow myself the opportunity to connect with my sister as often as I was, able to or allowed to. And while, yes, this was, what I was doing to connect with her, I couldn't do it any longer. And when I go ahead to give myself a voice, when I set boundaries, when I speak my truth, it became very much aware that, there were manipulations and things going on behind the scenes, that it actually, was leading my sister into more chronic stress. If I were to do what felt right to me, if I were to feel whole within myself, to have a voice, to be authentically me, to show up in the world that was making me feel like I wanted to exist in this world, that I was worthy of that, and that I was able to be myself in this world, in this existence, then there would be manipulations that went on behind the scenes where, the next time I would go ahead to connect, my sister would have these speeches that I knew were not her. And she would go into these states of fight or flight because, it was pretty clear that she was told to say certain things, which are so not her, kind of throwing shade my way. But it really was because I was setting boundaries. It was because I was speaking my truth. It was because I was no longer just sitting on the sidelines being quiet. I was standing up for what was right in regards to how my sister was treated, in regards to how I was being treated, in regards to, life, being myself. And that was a hard thing I had to face, is that anchor I held on to, for close to 3 decades, it shifted. It had to change. But, I had to come to this awareness, this space that, I had hard decisions to make. I had to have, a conversation with my sister. And she's a beautiful soul, and I love her, and I miss her every day. So it was an emotional topic, but I really just want to get vulnerable to share these aspects and these perceptions that I've learned over the years, because I know so many people struggle with this. So if this can help you in some way, then I'm okay to get uncomfortable and share these things that I've learned that led me to a space of wholeness, that led me to a space of change, of, understanding why I felt this way throughout my life. And yes, it brings about hard things sometimes, but I hope that, this perspective, these tools, these aspects, in our environments, within our thought process, what we take into our lives, can really help you on this journey when you're feeling numbed out, when you're feeling that you don't want to exist in this world anymore, because it's really heavy, it's really hard, and it really affects not only yourself, but the people you love, and, it's a hard thing. So, yes, your anchor needs to be malleable, because it was in me making these hard decisions, these changes, I had conversation, in private with my sister, as I typically did, when things kind of, fell, about, came awry, I'd always kind of go into the washroom with her, connect with her, and she was just crying, but it was me having this conversation with her in the bathroom, and I just, was very much aware that me staying in their lives was going to bring her more pain if I was to step into my authenticity, if I was to give myself, a voice, if I was to feel whole, that I wanted to, exist in this world. And that's what it's about, is that I'm grateful for all those experiences, because they brought me to an awareness of how I could share this with people, to help people. Okay, we're all about the feels today. But yes, it's about doing these hard things, though. There was, different aspects. I wasn't allowed to be myself. I wasn't allowed to have a voice. So it really brought her, more suffering, me staying in this environment, which is really hard to face. And, having this conversation with her in the bathroom, we both knew it. So it comes with making hard decisions in life. So, having this conversation, I kind of went ahead to, connect with her and share with her that, it was making me sick, being in, the space, and I may not be able to, connect with her, in the long term, in the future. And, I was going ahead to make hard decisions to go no contact, to kind of, go with, these aspects. But her response was very pure, and it was very much, aligned with me to say, that she knew. She said it was okay. She said that, she understood that this was going to make me healthy, and it was going to make her healthy. And that was really hard. So, I'm just allowing myself to be vulnerable on this, because, I don't talk about my sister a lot, but she's my anchor in life. So if you're struggling with, hard things in life in general, or just, not wanting to exist in this world, holding an anchor that holds such deep, imprint on your soul is really what you need to hold on to. Something that no matter what challenges come your way in life, you continue to hold on to that anchor. You pursue the change and understanding that you doing these hard things is to protect other people, is to help other people. And that's something that I'm really grateful for, is that I stayed in hard situations to connect with her the best I could. It led me into these states that were very dark, but this anchor is my sister, and she helps me every day step into the change. So the anchor you hold when you don't want to exist in this world needs to be something that's really deeply rooted within your soul, that makes you feel so whole, that it's, basically providing you this feeling that, you existing in this world matters. You existing in this world and doing what feels right to you is, something bigger than yourself. And that's really the anchor we need to hold on to. We've regrouped. But that's really the anchor we need to hold on to. So it's going to be unique to you, but you need to really dig deep, hold on to that something within your soul. And it's always in an alignment. It's always, about coming to this space that sometimes we don't know what our purpose is in life. But if it's imprinted on our soul on that deep level, it's for a reason. So, holding on to this anchor, yes, the aspect of my perception of it changed. But, every day I go about life doing hard things. Every day I go ahead to, guide people, try to become the best version of myself, to understand that I want to guide and lead people out of their darkness to a better space. Because I have this anchor, I always hold on to it every day. Is that while I don't get to connect with my sister any longer, she is my anchor every single day in knowing that, I did hard things. I do hard things because, it holds deep meaning in this world for me to exist in it. Even if I can't always perceive it, even if it's, me doing things that are unknown, even if it's, you going ahead to step into the change, even if you're feeling alone in the world, there's something within us that we are here to do. There's something that holds deep meaning for us to bring into this world to help, guide other people, to lead others onto a path of their authenticity, to feel seen and heard in their relationships, to help them out of the darkness we feel, to ensure that, we can help in some way, that people no longer, feel, that they're not whole within themselves, and that they actually want to exist in this world, and that they're worthy and deserving of that, because you are. And that's the anchor you need to hold on to. Something that's malleable, something that's imprinted deep within your soul, that regardless if aspects of that anchor changes, you can continue to step forward every day knowing that this anchor holds deep meaning and it holds value within the world, not just yourself. But, it's also to come to this space and this awareness that, we need you in this world. We really need to get out of the mind. We really need to, come to this space to understand that we are worthy and deserving of living a life that's authentic to us. We deserve to feel whole in our, lives, in our environments, and that comes with stepping into change. We're here to grow. We're here to step into alignment in life. And yeah, it's heavy, and I know it's hard, and this is an emotional, episode, but, I am very much a person that, yes, when I'm in the moment and I'm coaching and I'm leading, I'm very grounded. I'm very much, in different, energy. I am the listener. I am the guide. I, try to lead in that aspect. But, some of these episodes that I share, they really are on a soul level. They are really, about different experiences they've had. And I really like to share that vulnerability through the screen, through, the audio, because I think that's something that, we have neglected for so long, which leads us into this stage of numbing out, that we don't really exist in this world because we're not feeling what's coming up. And that's important. It's something that's been removed from society. We've been taught to numb out. And I think that it's really brave and really powerful to step into the change, to understand that it's okay to be vulnerable and, speak your truth, seek support if you need to, and understand that being vulnerable and saying, hey, I don't like where I am, I need help, is a brave thing. And being vulnerable in your emotions, feeling what needs to be felt in order for it to come up so it can be released, is a brave thing. It is about stepping into the change. It's about stepping into authenticity. Me, I uniquely embarked on, a spiritual journey, and, that doesn't have to resonate with you, but it's really about shifting energy. It's about shifting things, making change in your environments, in your relationships, doing hard things, self-growth and development. It's about shifting our perspective, our mindset, doing the healing we don't want to. It all comes down to us doing hard things that brings us into alignment. And when we're in alignment, we're living out our soul's purpose. We begin to feel whole within ourselves. We no longer fall into these states of the mind, of the ego, that lead us to feel that we don't want to exist in this world. Because when we feel whole within ourselves, we feel whole. We feel like we're living a life of meaning and intention. And that's what's missing, is that we don't feel we're living an intentional life. We feel like, we are not, showing up with meaning. We don't feel like we're aligned with a purpose, and that's what it is. And yes, we can show up in life and, care about people, and we can go ahead to say we love our jobs, and, maybe it is something you really enjoy, but we still fall into these thought patterns that we don't want to exist in this world. And that's what it's about. It needs to be on a soul level. It needs to be that we are feeling that we're, feeling whole within ourselves, and that comes with stepping into the change, and that comes with authenticity. Because, what I've learned over the years is, I just thought I was me. I just thought, who I was me, and what I perceived of myself is somebody I no longer recognize. And that's what it's about, is sometimes it's just conditioning. Sometimes it is just what we've come to know from our experiences, from society, from life. And those get layered on. So you have to dig through all of those layers of that onion of yourself to find the core, to find the root of your soul, to understand what lights you up, to feel whole within yourself. Because when you feel whole within yourself, you do things that feel right to you. You step into change because you know that it lights you up. It's meant for you to pursue. You begin to, pursue growth because you are taking steps to live a life of intention and meaning, to bring value to not only, how you live life, but to other people. That anchor, that thing that we hold on to is not only for ourselves, it's something bigger than ourselves. And we need to step into that change to get there. That, us being in existence and living a life, existing in it, is holding value to other people. And that's, what I've learned to be true, is that we fall into depression, we fall into this state of numbing out, we fall into these thought patterns because we are feeling that we're not providing anything. And I know that's hard to hear, but it's really coming down to the space that at a soul level we feel that, because we can perceive, and yes, we care about people, we show up for people, but when we feel a void within ourselves, it's really just us coming to this space that maybe we're misaligned with our purpose. And while yes, you are caring about people, doing wonderful things to help the community, likely, it's in coming to this space that if you're having these thought patterns, there's something missing. There's something we need to investigate within ourselves and get into touch with our soul and what is providing us that wholeness, that we wake up in the morning knowing and feeling within ourselves that we're in alignment in life, that it is valuable that we exist in this world because we're providing what feels, right to us authentically, what lights up our soul. And, that's more of a spiritual, perception on how I view it. But really, that's what I've learned over the years, is that, while I perceived, I was going about life in the way I thought, I was meant to, that yes, I was doing, great things for the community, for other people, I still was feeling this void within myself. And it's just because, I couldn't perceive what was meant for me. I didn't know who I was. I didn't really have that, wholeness within myself. And that's really falling into alignment with life. And that comes with, self-exploration, self-discovery, and stepping into the change. And that's really what it's about. So I thank you for joining me on today's episode. The emotional aspect of, you or people that you care about and love, if you're feeling like you don't want to exist in this world, it's a really heavy thing. So I thank you for listening and, to my emotional, detail, but I hope that, my unique perspective, me being vulnerable on this episode can help you in your unique path, your unique way to, resonate with you and, connect with you on a deeper level. That, it's okay to be vulnerable. It's beautiful to be vulnerable. We need to bring that back into our lives. And, that's just kind of, what it's about, is that when we become vulnerable, we're being authentic. We're stepping into the wholeness of ourselves, that we begin to step out of these thought patterns, that we're feeling a void and we're feeling that we don't exist in this world. And it's a heavy thing. So thank you for joining me on today's episode. And I hope that, this perspective, the things I've shared, this, energy, this emotional sense, I'm going to go ahead to blow my nose now. It just brings you to an elevated space and, a different perception and hopefully, a different level of wholeness within yourself to understand that where you are right now is okay. And, if you know someone who's struggling with this, it's not on you either. It's just something that comes up naturally when we're just, going through change, when we're feeling, this void, and we just need to, embrace different things and, feel that wholeness within ourselves to get to, a better space. And it takes time. So start, stepping to the change, addressing these things. And, that's really my wish for you, to step into a beautiful life, a beautiful space that, you feel so freaking whole within yourself. And that's the space I've gotten to. And I love to talk about the spiritual aspects and that everything is energy and quantum physics. And, these aspects, are really related to it. But I'm not going to get into that in today's episode that I've shared. It is about shifting things in our lives, stepping into the change, doing things that feel right to us, even if no one else is doing it, even if people are going to say that, what are you doing? If it feels authentic to you, it's for a reason. It's often our intuition, our soul guiding us onto a path of alignment because, God, the universe, the soul is love and the soul is wholeness. So often, when we ignore our intuition, when we ignore the growth and change that we're being guided to step into, this is where we fall into this pattern of our thoughts that we don't exist in this world. We're always being guided by our intuition and led onto a path of alignment towards our purpose, towards wholeness, towards the love that we hold within ourselves. Because, God, the universe, your soul, doesn't want you to be living in a state that you feel like you don't want to exist in this world. Let's be real. That's the ego. That's these things that have been built into our society, these thought processes, the conditioned minds sometimes that we feel shame when you do things, we feel fear to step into what's unknown, and these are just different aspects. So understand that, you doing what feels right to you, that your intuition's kind of guiding you to step into, to make change in your life, is really the path towards, feeling whole within yourself and stepping into alignment. And that's a beautiful thing. So keep shining, lovely beings, and know that I believe in you and send you love and light always through the screen. Thank you for joining me on today's episode of Awaken Mindset. And if you feel the call, go ahead to check out theautumnmindset.com for mindset and energy guidance to lead you onto a path of elevated vibration and to embody the frequency of authenticity to live your dream reality. Keep shining, lovely beings, and follow those paths that call to you.